to what we have today. But have you considered more students coming into the school, so don't we need more gym space?
It comes down to the fact that during the day, the little gym up front gets very little use. That's mostly community use, the one in the 1930s building. And we are gonna do the same thing we're doing with classrooms. We're gonna fill the gyms we got all day long. That's the key to this, it makes it different. Obviously, the other scheme wasn't doing that. I think the other scheme might have had another gym. And yeah, that's great, but we think it's workable this way. And you have some PE classes happening in that auxiliary gym with non-high day spaces too. So that's what it has to do.
All right, that's helpful.
It's a lot, it was been raised several times in our meetings that happen in the afternoon.
And the design team meetings, that was the biggest concern that I heard.
Right, and we're still working through that, and we have continued to work through that.
There's also some fitness center space too that's utilized for phys ed classes as well.
Mhm.
So when you talk in terms of teaching stations for physical education classes, it's,
And that's not changing, right, the fitness center space?
yeah, it will change.
We're improving it,
I think it's
enlarging it,
improving,
moving
yeah,
it.
I'd like to say we're improving
Right, we're
it.
improving it, enlarging it, and moving it.
I mean, these guys have been working together very closely. They're coming up with a very creative approach to maximize the utilization of the existing building from what I see.
It's the only way you're gonna get there. It's the only way we can do it. You're not gonna have tons of extra room, and you're gonna have to schedule very judiciously. But I think that was the assignment that we were given when we walked into this room. Use the spaces as much as you're able. Don't let them sit there. If you were to go there now, from what we hear from Dr. Cooper, that front gym is primarily, the one up in the ninth grade center, is primarily community use after hours. Primarily, after, once in a while. We're gonna tuck that down in the other and use it every day and try to load it up, whatever the amount of periods you got every day to use it. We're gonna supplement it with lower base spaces. You can do fitness and aerobics and different kinds of things in a space like this, and we're gonna expand one of those, that's, as well, it's gonna be different. And yeah, there's gonna be a little squeak. We don't have it all worked out. This was, you know, do we got a shot? We think we do. Do we have to sit with everybody? You bet.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. And then my other question was about the bottom line. So basically, with all the pluses and minuses, we got to 55 million by reducing the contingency by that much.
That's pretty much the only way you're gonna get there, unless you wanna give up one of the, you pick it.
Yeah.
Give up some other things in
We
that
think
list.
it's not prudent to not put something in for pipe right now.
So I thought you told us before that $2 million was a very small contingency. So is there something that you've seen that gives you more confidence to reduce that?
Well, part of it is we do have some of it sort of spread into the pipe. And that's kind of a contingency item in the code. But no, it's just, you said 55, we gotta get to 55.
Okay.
If I had my druthers, I'd make it 55.8.
Yeah,
But I mean, you know, and there's a list here that you can choose from, and we can make educated guesses using, and we're all part of that. You can't not do part of the roofs, you can't do, not, you know, we've already talked about the fact that we've got it whittled down with 21,000 square feet, so let's just go through our options. You can't build less building, not gonna do it. We already said in all that green area of the building, go back, that we're only gonna do mechanical systems and sprinkler systems, so that's not doing it. We already got the site work nailed down as tight as we think we can do. We hope the borough and the township don't add to that, so that's kind of off the table. So we're kind of down to the items that are on this list. And they're not much fun. But, you know, if you got a good bid, you could probably pick some of them up. If you had a bad bid, you can live without it and hopefully make it work within the contingency we got.
As Jay said, we're still hoping to pull something from the code issues in the underslab piping. We're hoping to see some savings there.
Items
That may
1,
be
items
back.
3, and item number 4 are the items that we have room.
We hope we have room.
We hope we have room. There's still some question about the total cost.
But just so you know, on item 3, it will not be 0, because we know we got handrail issues already.
That's right.
It's not 0, but hopefully it's not, whatever it was, we have to change. We're trying to be as transparent as we can. If it's bad news, it's bad news, and we're bringing it.
I appreciate it,
And it's not fun, actually.
but I understand it.
It's not fun at all. The teachers are very nervous.
Are you
you
finished?
know.
I am finished.
Steve, oh, Joe. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I had asked you before about tutoring areas, and you said you were going to have them.
We have
improved.
15 of
I don't
those
see
type
them.
spaces.
I don't see them.
Okay, if you look along the Cub gym, you'll find 4 of them.
Yeah, SGIs.
Yeah, they call it, small group instruction is the same.
Okay.
You will,
That answers my
okay,
question.
you will find, if you start poking around there, at least 15. There'll be a bunch by the business, the business corridor. There'll be one upstairs up in the science. There will be a bunch of them in the 9th grade center, along with the gym is being repurposed.
Yeah.
You start adding them up, and that's kind of where we're at.
So that'll give us more classrooms.
We're hoping that that's gonna give you a tremendous amount of classroom, because we're trying to say, in those periods when you're remediating 8, 10 students, we'll put them in there instead, and clear a classroom and reschedule. It's not gonna be business as usual, it's gonna be a different way of teaching. It's all part of the, to be worked with.
Thank you.
Yes, just to go back to adding 600 students to the high school. Do we have a capacity number for the high school when this is done? What our capacity would be, number of students?
I will give it to you, but I don't now.
Right,
Because-
and then if we have the capacity for what it is now, currently,
Again, we'll have, it's not that easy, but we'll give it a try. PD numbers are kind of silly.
well, I
so
know
what to do.
PEDs are.
So we'll work with Dr.
90%,
Cooper, what
and
he's
if
got
we did
with-
80% or.
Right, we've been working with Dr. Cooper and noting which classrooms are empty, what percentage of the day. Taking those into account with the, because the 600 kids fit up in the, 600 fit up in the new building, we get
Right.
25, so that's it. So we're getting the extra capacity growth by taking classrooms in the existing building that aren't used all the time and using them much more.
Right, I was just trying to go to Mr. Elsier's question.
So, it's a valid, I don't have it.
About from the standpoint, because for growth, because right now we're running, I would say, maybe 530 a class. And if you're bringing 600 in, and you've got room right there for additional 70 students. So that allows you for that growth over that period of time. And that's why I was looking at the total capacity, because if you're only averaging 525 to 540 a class.
Let's see what we can do in the next week between now and the 12th, and see if we can come up with some educated things. The problem I have, and it gets everybody confused, the Department of Education uses capacity it's silly, and everybody just goes nuts with it. So what we're gonna try to do is go actual boots on the ground capacity and see what we can do with that. And it's gonna be a little bit interesting to see how that shakes out, because, again, in the 8 weeks we have, we're comfortable enough that we can make it work. It's not fabulously room to bang around in, but it should work with the room teaching style, but we'll do our best. We've actually had one guy working full-time on it for about 2 weeks, and it's an understandable question.
Okay.
It may shock you compared to what you saw with PD, don't worry about that. Because
Yeah,
PD
no.
numbers give you capacity for,
20 to 25 per room.
right, and they put gym classes here and that, and divide by your birthday and multiply by your anniversary, you know, it's crazy. We'll try to do boots on the ground and out. You know what, I told the guys going out the door today, I needed that
You need that figure.
number. I knew it, you guys are good. Let me try again.
Yes.
I have two things. Oh,
Go ahead.
I was looking at the gym addition and adaptive gym. And you talk about a boys' locker room there, but I can see a girls' locker room.
We just cut the corner off, that's just the enlargement. Go back to the overall, keep going, keep going. Keep going, one more, there. We are working all those locker rooms up that side.
Okay, it is here then, okay.
We just,
I didn't want them going on.
you thought that was a bad idea? We didn't tell you how we made this work, we got rid of the girls' locker room? I'm afraid time to line people do.
Comment?
Yeah, I have a question.
Excited.
The financing we're doing goes out to 2029, correct?
Yes.
So I can't get my head away from that roof. So our roof's gonna be way worn out before we have it paid for.
Okay.
I mean, the single
Yeah.
lot.
Pardon me?
The single lot.
Yeah,
The single plat.
And maybe this, I'm not quite sure if you're done yet, but the,
Oh, we got.
We got 2 more pages yet.
okay, I'll wait then, thanks.
Let me ask one more question real quick. The terrazzo floor, is
Yes.
there an advantage of doing that now versus later? I'm sure there is, but tell me about it.
It's in a sense, if you can imagine this, it'll probably be less disruption to do it now while we're phasing construction and able to close areas off. Later, it'll have to be done in summer sessions, most likely to repair it.
But cost-wise?
Cost-wise, other than inflation, and the amount of work that may be required additional to close areas off. But if it can be done in the summer, it may not be that bad from a cost standpoint, other than inflation and going back in and doing it.
Thank you.
or it's been like that ever since it was put down.
The other thing, I'm concerned, like Steve, about 5 years, 10 years from now, that the part that basically disturbs me is charter schools and cyber school. How will that affect our attendance down the road? You know, I just don't have a feel for it. You know, I envision that we will have more going to cyber school, hopefully not more to charter school, but if we do that, we probably won't need the same population for the classroom.
I'll tell you one thing, a lot of my districts are doing now, they're planning for it, long distance learning in the abstract. These school districts have 5 students or 6 students that want to take Russian. You put them in one of these rooms with a link up and you have one central person teaching. That's another way we're expanding curriculum in other districts that we're working in. And I think you're going to see a lot of that, so that you can offer a fairly interesting array of options and do it by collaboratively tying into other places. All it requires is some IT network, which you guys are pretty good about, and some spaces to hold it. So that's one of the things that we're building in, and we're not that far with this, but there's IT money in here. We're looking at a system that we could probably do something in that order. Gives you some
If you come up with a
flexibility.
number like that, I'd like to know what you've been there for charter schools and cyber schools.
That I don't know.
I know, I don't think you can.
No, I wish I did, I'd be rich. I go out and
Oh,
spend.
you are, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I'm rich in spirit. I have fun. At the end of the day, though, I think what we're trying to do with you, we're gonna take every space in here and try to maximize its use and try to maximize its flexibility. Spaces that have been well maintained, we're gonna try to leave them alone and just reschedule. That's kind of the nutshell.
Okay, you have some more to tell us about then?
We have quite a bit more. I appreciate your patience, and I'm sorry it takes so long for this, but I think this was an important item, important list to go through, so everybody understands where we're coming from, and to realize that the final decision isn't necessarily made with the alternates. Some of those things can wait until bid date, just like the roof and things, before you make a commitment one way or the other. As I said before, we're really talking about 2 separate budgets here. One is without lead, the other is utilizing the grants and the reimbursement going for lead. You can see the last 3 line items on this chart here that we have that we're at. We just have some estimating, and now I'll be going through the next couple slides fairly quick, but just to recap these. The estimated cost that we have, and I'll go through how we came up with that, to achieve lead goal. It's going to be in the area of $3,294,000. The proposed total lead gold project cost, so if we add that to our 55 million, we're looking at $58,294,000. It seems very high, but keep in mind, if we achieve lead gold, we're going to get back in potential additional reimbursement from PDE and the $2 million, we have $850,000, and the $2 million from the ACE grant. We'll be getting back $2.85 million, which basically gives us a net cost of about $443,000 bottom line. So if we can go to the next slide, Dave, we'll just go, I'll try to go through these as quickly as possible. This is just our checklist that we use to establish what's required cost-wise to achieve lead silver and lead gold. It's just a checklist of points. In each one of these categories, we have to achieve a certain number of points. The category on the column on the left-hand side are the points that we definitely have to achieve. The column in the center are additional points that we have to achieve to get lead silver and gold. Can we go to the next slide, then, Dave? That's where we start to break this down. This is really our cost estimate, what it's achieved. You can see the columns. We have base lead point, we have additional lead points, we have prerequisite points, and we have points that require 11 additional points to go to silver and 11 additional points to go to gold. The bottom line here is to get to silver, just to get to silver, we're talking about $1.8 million in basic costs, and then an additional $417,500 for that, which gives us a total of $2,217,500 to achieve lead silver. Once you achieve lead silver, you qualify for the additional $850,000 PDE reimbursement.
Is that besides the 2 million?
No, this is just to get the lead silver.
The
So
2
if
million
you
for
decide to
gold.
go to lead silver and stop, you're gonna get, it's gonna cost you $2,217,000 and change. You're gonna get back $850,000 in additional reimbursement over 20 years, which gives you a net, so you're paying $2,200,000 for $850,000.
So silver's probably not a great idea.
So your net cost is gonna be
The-
$1,367,000. It's not a good payback. It'll give you about a 27, 30-year payback.
But will you gain anything for your electrical and your whatever it
That-
is that you?
Yes, and I'll go through that. I'll go through it. If you go to the next page, and the page after that, these are the costs to achieve the points to go to lead gold. Relatively small incremental change, $690,000 additional dollars to go to lead gold, over and above the lead silver price. So that adds us to basically $3 billion and change overall, as we had on the first schedule, give you that exact figure. Basically, we're talking to achieve lead gold is gonna be over the $55 million, is gonna be an additional $3,293,950. But now you're getting $2,850,000 back, which gives you a net cost without the paybacks of $443,950. 55,444. Now, we calculated the estimated payback. Comes to about, taking into account energy, light energy, electrical, light, revised mechanical system, new boilers, high-efficiency boilers, and so on and so forth. That gives you a payback of about $50,000 per year. Now, in our lead prices, we have a $200,000 contingency for lead because we're right down to the exact point requirements. And our experience is when you submit this, you usually lose some points that you were anticipating. You thought we met this, we met this, we met this. Well, when they review everything in the commission and so on, usually you'll lose points. And you've got to go back and add points somewhere. So we have a contingency in there of $200,000 because we may have to increase, say, insulation, we may have to, who knows what at this stage. So, my reason for telling you that, the $50,000 a year gives us a 4-year payback if you exclude the $200,000 contingency. If you keep the $200,000 contingency in there, because it reduces our total expenditure, if you include the $200,000 contingency in there, it will give you an 8-year payback.
But that's without the geothermal.
That's without geothermal. So you can see at the very bottom line there, in the red, it's the only caveat to this whole thing, is when we get the ACE grant, hopefully the 21st of November, the ACE grant submittal was based on geothermal. Both grants are based on achieving lead gold. The grants are based on achieving lead gold, and we are going to achieve lead gold. but we're not using geothermal. So we just, when we get the grant, we just have to review the criteria of the grant and make sure that everything we're doing is gonna meet the criteria of the grant.
So that's only 1 point also?
The geothermal, no, I don't know the exact quantity.
That's what I
Geothermal
meant.
adds a number of points, because it adds some points to the energy,
Right.
and it also adds points to sustainable, so it adds a number of points. But we're not doing geothermal, so we can't take advantage of it.
Well, if we did, what would that do to these other things that have numbers behind them?
It would reduce them somewhat, but it wouldn't reduce the ones that we put the numbers to drastically.
I don't understand.
What it does, it'll add us more points in the energy, but some of these other points, the majority of our numbers are prerequisite, they're requirements, we have to get.
So all these are requirements?
Just about, the first column where it says prerequisite, all those, you cannot even go for lead unless you achieve that. Doesn't give you any points or anything, you have to achieve those.
Okay, go
Just
back
to
to the
play the game.
silver, the sheet that had the
The
silver has
sheet,
all
the
the
very first
prerequisites.
of the lead that has.
To be a lead player, you have to do all the prerequisites. If
What's
you
this?
don't, you don't even have a choice.
What's a school as a teaching tool?
That's one of their points.
Yeah, but what is it?
You
They
said
want you to
curriculum.
correct your curriculum, change your curriculum so the school is being used. For instance, at Lower Merion School District, we did 2 lead high schools. One of them has these tremendous bioswales, and then they started a biology class specifically around that, started a curriculum with that, and they are therefore getting that point. They want you to use the building differently because of lead. And there's different ways to do this.
So these points and the numbers beside them that are on these papers are ones that you're striving for?
We don't have a choice with prerequisites, you must, and yeah, we went through with our lead
Okay, but
consultant.
what's our school for teaching tool? School as a teaching tool, you have 1 point there. and-
That's
Well,
1 point.
Right, and we're saying it doesn't cost us anything.
Well, it says 50,000.
Well, it'll cost us something in that case to set up the curriculum and
Maybe that's
materials.
okay, maybe that was it.
Materials.
I'm trying to figure out what it is.
Right.
Yeah, it's actually a teaching program. You utilize the school to teach a science curriculum, social studies curriculum, the whole gamut, where the students can monitor the energy,
That's
they
correct.
can monitor the costs, and what it requires is curriculum materials to set up for that project, and that kind of a teaching curriculum.
Where is it, Lee?
It's the very bottom line.
It's 1 of 2, all the way at the bottom. Second page,
Second page, that,
down the bottom.
very last page.
Okay, gotcha. It must have come from our lead consultant who described what it would take to get there. I don't know. We had meetings, conference calls with our lead consultant who really wants us to go. He's excited about it.
Okay, so-
And he gave us some of these, others were done by amounts of things that go in and out of the project. I don't have that answer.
What's mold prevention? I mean, what do we have to do for that?
You have to use a different mechanical system.
Oh, okay. Okay, so there's a reason for all this.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, you have a knack for picking the one I don't know. I can almost answer any of these others. Give me a shot.
It requires a more thorough
No, I read about the
monitoring of
geothermal
humidity.
system in.
Yeah, it
we're
requires a
gonna
more
get some
thorough
payback
monitoring of
for it.
humidity, requires even a more thorough selection of mold, of construction materials that don't foster any growth. There's just a whole series of things involved in that.
We did 2 LEED Gold high schools for Lower Merion concurrently. They both are gold, neither has geothermal. They're very efficient and they're working, so
I don't care what they have.
you like the LEED.
Yeah,
It's
I'd
okay.
like to have the geothermal here, is
That would
what
be
I'd
lovely.
like.
We have lots of those. There's a well field and the extra
I
stuff,
know.
that's the thing. We'd be happy. Vote it in and we'll do it for you. We have no issues with it.
A
I
caution
never
with
get any
that.
votes for what I want, you know that.
Yeah, there is a caution with that. That will add
I know.
about $1.5 million to the overall cost.
She's right, though,
Yeah,
slightly
yes.
less. Something comes off of some of these.
Right.
Yeah, something will come off, but
Something
not
comes off of
appreciable,
something.
because most of that cost, 1.8 million of that, is strictly just
Prerequisites.
prerequisites. And the other items aren't, a lot of the other items aren't affected by the
Then we'd
geothermal
save a
system.
lot more money too. Per year.
I didn't think so.
Save some
It's still questionable.
in the energy department.
Well, you have a very reasonable energy rate here as far as,
That's part of the trouble.
that's part of the problem.
It's a nice problem to have. Your energy costs are fairly economical because you're buying gold.
Thank you.
If we can just go to the, if there's no more questions, we can just go to the last slide. I just want to point out one final thing. You'll see here, regional feasibility study. Regional feasibility study didn't include additions, didn't include a caddy concept, didn't include relocation of the ninth grade students, had no site improvements included, no security system upgrades, and no improved room utilization, which we are in collaboration spaces. It wasn't a design for the 21st century educational system. What that estimate was $31,987,000. Our project, estimated construction cost, comparing just the renovations, well, not the renovations, just comparing our total project, new additions, site work, relocation of the ninth grade students, improved bus and vehicle circulation and safety on the site, secure entries and other security modifications, and the 15 collaborative spaces. Now, all of that work, total project, will come to about $47 million. $15 million difference. You're getting absolutely very little, just infrastructure here. No educational improvements, very little. No site improvements. You're getting the total project. $15 million is an extremely, and a great bang for your buck. There's no question about it. You're getting your total program for the difference in cost. Where up here, you're just getting renovations of the existing school. We just wanted to drive that point home. We're really accomplishing a lot with relatively little. $55 million does not sound like a little amount, and it's not. But for what we're accomplishing, it really is.
Any questions?
I have one other slide, just to make you all aware. This is very quick. It's just a final schedule that we put together with broad stroke dates. Today's decision and next week's decision is not a final decision to authorize this project to go to construction by any means. You're going to have 5 more approval phases to go through. My pointer's almost out. 5 more approval phases to go through before you really commit to constructing this project. I just wanted to point that out. This is just one stage, one phase, and basically you'd be authorizing a budget and authorizing us to proceed on to the schematic design and proceed on with the design of the project. And we find a lot of these generalities that we talked about. Yes.
I do have a question about the process, or a couple questions. One is, do we need to vote on this before we find out if we got the lead grant?
I was going to go over that.
Okay,
Yeah, there's going to be 2 things we're going to ask you to vote on Tuesday.
okay.
The first one is to accept the design as it was presented tonight with a $55 million budget. That is not a lead eligible building, okay? So we would ask you, what you saw tonight, with that $55 million, approve that. That will take us away from the conceptual planning and take us into the conceptual design. Then the second item we would ask you to vote on would be a conditional item based on the fact that we get the $2 million from the ACE grant. If we get the $2 million from the ACE grant, we will then pursue the gold lead, but that will add a net $443,000 to the project. That
No, it's
payment-
gonna add more than.
Net of the $2 million in
Oh,
the.
net,
Yeah,
net,
Yeah,
net.
it's gonna add 3.2
Yeah.
or $3.3 million.
The end dollar figure after the reimbursements would be $55,444,000.
Right, but the net is what you're concentrating on. And the other condition of that will be if we get the $2 million ACE grant, and if they require us to do geothermal, we will have to tell them, no, we don't want the ACE grant because we do not intend to pay $1.4 million or whatever the figure is to go geothermal in place of what the HVAC system that we're looking at is. So there'll be 2 items. One is just to proceed to conceptual design. The second one will be a conditional item that this board approves to go lead gold if and when the ACE grant is awarded to us in the amount of $2 million. We will achieve lead gold unless we are forced to do geothermal.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand it for you, the 55 million what?
If we go to LEED Gold
Yeah.
status, the net increase to the budget after reimbursements of $2.8 million will be approximately $444,000.
That I
That's
understood,
correct.
but you said something, 55 million, something.
The total project cost would be $55,444,000 after the reimbursements. With the reimbursements, that would be $55,444 plus $2.8 million.
So basically what we're saying, if we can get other people's money to go LEED Gold, we'll do it, but if we can't, we won't do it.
Can they force to do it?
Well, the way the grant is submitted, first of all, we must hit Gold LEED to get the X grant.
Right.
But there is specific wording in the grant as it was submitted so many months ago that says we will use geothermal. Now, if they hold us to that, and our professionals say we can get the Gold LEED without going geothermal, but if they say you must go geothermal, we're gonna say, well, then we're not gonna go LEED at all.
Okay.
Is the 2.8 getting reimbursed? Is the 2 million ACE grant, like PDE might not give us that money for 4, 5, 6 years, or is this 2 million that comes right into the project?
I believe it comes right into the
Okay,
project.
so it's just the 800,000
That
that
we'll
will be
have to
under
wait
the
for.
other, yeah, the reimbursement. Okay.
Any other question? Yes.
Yeah, two more questions. So, if I understand correctly, before Tuesday, we're going to see some more information on the roofing options cost analysis?
I can't guarantee you before Tuesday on that. What we were talking about really is before
Bid.
the bid date, before you need to award bids, we will give you all that information prior to that to make a knowledgeable decision one way or the other.
Oh, okay, misunderstood. And then
Yeah.
we also talked about capacity information. Would that be by before Tuesday? Or
I'm going to do my very best. I will have a pretty good idea in a couple of days of whether we get there, because I understand you need to see it. I will do my very best.
And I want to be very clear, getting to the $55 million, because ultimately it's my responsibility on this recommendation. In order for us to get to the $55 million figure, we are sacrificing contingency. We're going from a very modest contingency of $2 million, right? It's already thin. We're taking another $795,000 off of that contingency. So I don't want anyone to be surprised, because in projects like this, in the history of projects, typically when you do major renovations, you uncover things you're not expecting. So what would happen if that were to occur is the dreaded word change order, to bring that back into the project, and the cost changing. So I think it's important for the board to realize that going forth with a $55 million project with that reduced contingency is not the best approach on going forward with the project, because you're really cutting things very close. Now, we have line items, line item 1, line item 3, and line item 4, which we're unsure about what the total costs are going to be. But we don't know what those reductions are, or even if there are going to be reductions. So I want the board to be very clear. The other thing the board can say to us is bring us a recommendation that takes care of the contingency concerns that the superintendent is expressing to you. Now, I'm transparent and I'm honest and I'm upfront. And I don't want anyone to be surprised if we go above that, $1.2 million contingency. That's my statement.
Yes.
Well, it's that point, thinking through this and having done projects over the years, I'd almost rather go in worst case scenario and be pleasantly surprised, as opposed to going in with a hope, a wish, and a prayer. Because I'm very uneasy 2 million was tough enough to stomach. To go less than that, I think it's just not realistic. And quite frankly, I would expect 5 million for a contingency, which would put us at 60 million. Not that I'm crazy about that, but I'm just trying to be real about, to your point, renovating older historic type buildings. You don't know what you don't know till you tear down the wall, and then you go, uh-oh. And there's some costs that you weren't planning on. Because that's just gonna put us in a position a year from now, or whatever, when we do knock that wall down, now we're like, okay, we're gonna go, now we have to make other decisions. I'd almost rather go in, worst case now, make that decision if that's what the board decides, and be pleasantly surprised a year from now and come under. Just my thoughts.
When?
This project from the very beginning has been a very difficult one. And at one meeting, I verbally stated, because I had heard Mr. Clough say, we will bring it in at 55 million.
We shouldn't try.
And I trusted that, and I, I believe that that's what the board directed everyone to do. And I'm pleased that you were able to get there. I hear what Mr. Alcier said. I understand that. But the board directed the 55 million, and the community heard that. The community has spoken loud and clear about the concerns of this project. And as a board member, I have to listen to the community and their concerns about the money that's being spent. Some don't want it to happen at all. But the other part of being a board member is looking at what is best for our young people also. And have that balance of the taxes and what's best for our young people. And there really is growth in our district. There really is a need for us to look at the best option. And if we can do it at 55 million, that's great. I understand change orders, but I don't think that I could vote to move forward at more than 55 million. So I appreciate what you gentlemen have done to get it there. And I do really,
Sacrifice on everybody's part, including the districts.
I do really understand the contingency piece. I'll be praying a lot that old building's not gonna have lots of
Well,
problems.
and it also covers things like if the borough were to say, I do want Keel Alley paved, it's those kind of
Another
things.
Those kind of
Right.
things are out of our
Because
control.
we're gonna try to find as much as we can. I mean, we don't like change orders. It's an awful evening out when you have one. But there's two pieces to that contingency. There are those things that are unknown. We have not been in front of the planning agencies and the code officials, the PDE people. There are people that have things on top. You know about unfunded mandates, so whatever PDE comes to there, that's the other reason. We get it. We're team players. We gave you the list. They're awful select, they're awful choices. We thought the best of the choices was
Yeah.
Right. So then I have the last part of my speech tonight is, what would the administration recommend?
By the way, the majority of that alley is in Cloverdale Township.
I'm sorry.
From Madison up.
It's crazy line it goes through, but we, by the way, will be talking to both about inside and outside. So.
Gwen had a question.
Yeah, I can respond. The direction that I was given from this board was very loud and clear. And we brought the project in at $55 million. There are some sacrifices that come with that $55 million figure. And those sacrifices have to do with the contingency. My point in making the statement was to be transparent with the community that that is a sacrifice. Now, we may come in with a bid under 55 million, and it may not be a concern, but I don't want anyone in the public to come to us a year from now and say, oh, well, we cut that contingency down to 1.2 million, and it's now back up to 2 million, and the real price is 55,800,000. Transparency is key. So my recommendation, based on the charge that I've been given, would be to come to the board with that $55 million recommendation. Now, I'm going to come with two recommendations because I think it's also of value to the district over time, and some of the benefits that we gain out of going for LEED Gold status. We'll replace all of the fixtures in the restroom. Those fixtures will be water efficient, and over time, those fixtures, after that payback, will continue to save this community money. So I think it's worth the investment to chase the LEED Gold, provided that we get the $2 million ACE grant with that $850,000 reimbursement. So the second piece that I would say is I will bring that recommendation as a contingent recommendation should we achieve the ACE grant award. So those two things. But I wanted to be transparent with the community now and not come to them a year from now saying, oh, by the way, the project, we knocked that wall down and we have $800,000 worth of work to do and we have to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, so you, Ruth?
I have a couple of things. I'm very concerned about cutting the contingency of too many buildings. There's two other things. We didn't hear anything how you's made out. You said you were having a meeting with the borough and the township the other week.
We outlined the pathway going forward. It's ironic, the first time we can get before the public, it happens to be November 12th, we're going to be having the vote, so we're going to skip that, move on to it. All they said was, we'll work with you, we understand, but they cannot really weigh in. They seem cooperative, they seem excited. Boyertown Borough is thrilled that the historic building is being repurposed, but really that's as far as we got. What they said was, we will work with you on land development, and we'll probably defer, likely, Boyertown will let Colebrookdale take the lead on that, because that's where most of the work is. They're both insisting on being involved with the interior building, which is gonna be a nightmare, but they claim they did it in '92. And we didn't even talk to them about that. So it was a good meeting. We expect cooperation. I think it was very productive. We discussed all the issues. Their initial reaction was, well, we understand what you're doing. We have to take it in front of all our boards.
Right.
So
So
I don't have.
it was a good meeting.
It was a very good meeting. They are very, I think, appreciative of being involved in the change, being discussed in deep. They got the same presentation you just did in terms of what we're trying to do. Kind of a good talking to about, hey, can you help us here by not piling on? They said, we'll try. You know, there's ways you can help and hurt. They said, we get it, we're trying to help you. It was a very good meeting.
And to use the term that we've been using all along in this, we approach both Colebrookdale and the borough, and we're very open and very transparent with everything that we're doing. We think that's the critical element to this whole project.
Okay.
You know, we just have to lay it on the line with them and take it where it goes.
And we are scheduled to be in front of the Colebrookdale Planning Commission on November 21st.
Right.
And the first time we're available to see the Boyertown Borough Planning Commission is December 10th. But obviously, we have a board meeting that night, so our professionals are going to have to be there to represent us.
I think we've had a fruitful meeting. I was wondering if you could turn the clock back another hour so I quit on time.
Whatever you want, I'm tall enough to reach that.
And the thing is, there's going to be two recommendations coming to the board. The first one is to approve the concept. How does the board member feel about approving the concept? Anyone opposed to it?
No, but I wasn't done answering my question.
What?
No, I don't oppose it, but I wasn't finished asking questions.
Oh, I thought you were, I'm sorry, Ruth.
No, I was trying to talk with you talking. I said about the contingency, I asked about the meetings, and I'd rather cut somewhere else and have a good roof on that building. I don't want to pay him for a second roof before the first one's paid. I hope you can understand what I'm saying.
We do.
And I don't know if there's anywhere else to cut.
You
It's
can
just
look
like-
at the list, those are kind of the.
I know, and
negotiations.
it's just like the contingency. I wasn't part of the design team. I wasn't allowed to be on that committee. So I have no idea what was discussed, what was thrown out, what was put in. I'm just telling you my feelings. I think that
Well, we'll go back just to. so
cutting that contingency fit is dangerous.
The design committee
Mrs.
had.
Tiroff, Mrs. Tiroff, I said you could be on the design team.
As an
wanted
alternate
to
when
be-
Donna couldn't go. That's what you asked me.
No, I said you could take my place on that.
You told me you were.
And you
I
said
don't
you
wanna
wanted
get
to be
into
on
it.
the project.
I don't want to
Okay,
get
that's,
into it.
we have enough discussion on that. I think we're what we're talking about right now can be voted on after the concept is worked on, after we get more details, worked on the concept. The concept is gonna allow us to do some development work, some drawings, and do things like that, and will solve a lot of the doubts that we have about what's happening. So I'd like to say, the first one is, can we vote on the concept at the next board meeting on the 12th? Anyone agree, disagree?
Well, John, I did have two more questions, because I think voting on the concept means agreeing on what's in the 55 million, what is an alternate, right? And so I just had two more minor questions, if I could ask them. I know we're getting late,
All right.
but I want to feel comfortable with this. So one thing I didn't understand why it would be included, but rather than an alternate, when I look at the other alternates, is the terrazzo floor. That seems like that could be categorized. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it's something, and maybe that could be an alternate. And I just wanted to hear why the recommendation was to include that rather than having an alternate.
It could easily be an alternate.
Number 17. And the thing with I don't feel as much about it, but the sidewalk on Kale Street, I know that's a safety issue, but it wasn't in here initially, so I was wondering if that could be an alternate too. And that just saves us a little bit more, we can keep the contingency a little higher and still be at the 55 million.
One of the concerns that we had as a leadership team, as administrative team, was the way that the students navigate down that road is unsafe. They're walking in and between cars, and we did not want to compromise safety. We thought it was extremely important that we have a safe message to the school as part of this renovation. That's why it's important.
Well, as was said before, the approval of the concept design is only the first of many approvals required by the board. So I guess I'm asking, can we put that on the agenda for the 12th and have the concept approved? And it seems to be positive there.
But are we approving it at the 55 million as being presented? Or
It's
is
a
at
concept.
the next stage, you can say, okay, now we went 2 million in contingency versus 1.2 million?
Maybe what's the next stage?
Right.
The next
After they get some design, there could be some changes in these numbers after they get further into detail. But as it is right now, it's a concept.
I think if you go to the last page, the steps that are remaining in this process, once the board decides what direction, based on those two recommendations we've done moving forward, there are 5 additional decision points for the board to continue with this project. And those happen at the, kind of tentatively, the months that you see listed there. So when we get down to the part where we award bids and bids come in, the board will have an opportunity. Should the bids come in less than $55 million, the board will have a decision point there to say, okay, the bids came in at 52 million. We think it's important as a board to invest an additional $1.8 million in the build-up roof. So then the price would be 53.8. So until we get those bids in, we don't really know what it's going to cost to construct this renovation project. So I think the steps in between, as Mr. Crossley has stated, each time we go to the next phase, we start to hone in closer and closer to what the exact cost is going to be. What KCBA and what Dewey have stated is, based on the conceptual design, based on their experience, they can do this project as it is listed to you in these pages for $55 million. Now, it could be less than that, correct, gentlemen?
That's correct.
Could be. We're trying. The wild card is agency add-ons. We'll see what they do.
All right, that was
PennDOT is involved.
that was one item, they were gonna bring two motions up. The second one is to vote on the contingency, not as a positive vote, but as, if we get it. How important is to know that right now?
Very
ACE
important. 'cause-
grant.
yeah,
What?
Talk about the ACE grant.
You mean the
Oh, the
gold,
ACE grant.
the gold.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the, it's not awarded to us yet, and we're saying we're looking for lead after we get that grant. Are we not jumping ahead of ourselves and saying that, well, go ahead, we'll work on it, but it may fall through?
The problem here is if you go to that sheet, we're trying to get in front of you with a schematic design in January, and we were hoping not to lose a month, because you would then have to
You couldn't do any
authorize-
work until we get that approval.
We can do work, but we can't do work relative to the grant. It would be nicer to know in advance that if the grant came, we're green lighted to do it.
Okay, well,
We're trying to save time in the overall fast track.
all right.
If you don't approve it next Tuesday, you'll have to wait a month. If you say approve it if we get it, fine. If we don't get it, you haven't approved anything that's gonna hurt
In the
you.
meantime, you can do some work on it.
Oh, we're gonna continue to work,
And
but,
either you can use it or throw it away.
oh, no, I won't do that.
Well, is it a positive also for the ACE grant people that we
What's
have
that?
on there that we are moving towards a goal and we are approving the fact
That's,
that
because there
we
would
get
be some
there,
value
and
to the,
that's what we're
to the,
going
to the,
Send a message.
state,
Based,
if we had that kind of a positive vote.
based on what we know with achieving lead goal, the architect, the construction manager, the administration believes that it adds value to the project extensive enough to recommend that. Because what we're really saying is, you're gonna get all of this additional stuff, and you're gonna pay $440,000 for it out of your pocket. But the real value of it is $3.2 million. So you're using someone else's money to improve the restaurant facilities, to upgrade those lighting fixtures, that figure you saw in your packet of $550,000, to upgrade those lights to the state-of-the-art, better light system inside the classroom, which uses less electricity over time. And all of those are factored into the payback for this project in that 4-year period without the contingency and the 8-year period with the contingency. So the decision really is, when you chase lead goal, is the value, the added value to the project with someone else's money. And I think that we would all agree, if somebody's gonna give us $2.8 million, it's a good thing to upgrade and to do all those energy savings types of things, and the toilet fixtures and the lights, and the improved mechanicals that are gonna come with that. So that's why we would recommend that, because of the added value.
Okay, well, if that's on the board meeting, any objection to that? Okay, so you put it both on the board meeting, there's 2 items.
I don't have an objection, can I ask one question?
Sure.
I just seen something here. Under roofing, you have new and re-roofing. That doesn't mean,
It means those
Okay.
new, that the roofing cost includes roofs for the new additions, the blue, and re-roofing a complete other existing building that sits there now.
so it's all new.
It's all, how to put that, when you get done, you'll have all new roofs.
That's what I'm.
But what it is, it's re-roofing the blue, okay, it's re-roofing the new
Okay,
construction.
I just wanted
that's
to
it.
make sure, because I seen re-roofing, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's meant to say, when you
Okay.
walk away from this project, all the roofs are new.
I'll be up checking them.
I know you will.
Thank you.
Okay, we will go through the fashion.
That's a real quick one.
Okay. So your next is about that athletic
Yeah,
field report.
We thought the board should know what our plan is for Memorial Stadium. We have an issue over there, just to give you an overall view of what the high school stadium looks like. Now, this is after we've played all of our home games on that football field. Still, it doesn't look too bad from this angle, does it? It doesn't look too bad from Burke Street, doesn't look too bad from Kale, or from Kale Street. But upon further look, we'll show you the good grass, which is pretty much everything from the hash marks out to the sidelines. And this is what we would like the whole field to look like. But it doesn't, because then we'll show you the severely damaged grass after a season of play. And it looks really bad. And the problem is, this has been a habitual thing for the last 4 or 5 years where we have to deal with this. And what we're trying to do, it's because it's clay and very tightly packed between the hash marks. So the plan that we came up with is we're gonna rototill or grind or beclavate, I guess you call it. Well, it's actually deeper than aerating. At the middle between the hash marks. Going to supplement the soil, hopefully loosen that up a little bit, and then plant grass so that next summer and fall we'll have a better product. The problem is that we're going to be limiting the use of Memorial Stadium for the whole spring season. It will be covered and will be shut down to any use. We're going to use the track, but any field events like javelin and those things that take up a lot of space is going to have to be moved down to probably the softball field. You may hear some feedback from the spring athletes, maybe the track athletes, but it's something that we feel we really do need to do to better this field for next season.
Any questions or comments?
Who else uses that field for spring sports?
Lacrosse. Some games. Lacrosse sometimes has some games.
So lacrosse will have to be relocated.
They don't play all their games in that stadium. They play a couple night games in there.
And it'll probably be upsetting to the senior lacrosse players. They won't be able to play Memorial Stadium their senior year, but long-term effect, I mean, we stress out our fields a lot, and this one gets a lot of use, and we feel we need to do this for the longevity and condition of the field.
Do you feel we have enough field capacity with the rest of the fields to cover? That it's just really used for these special games, like?
Don't we have an ongoing cost for maintaining these fields and stuff?
We do.
And that's what's paying for the project, for the work, is the ongoing, the maintenance that we have in our expense budget. It's not a capital project, anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, and we've tried to do the deep tine and the aerating. Nothing seems to break up. It's a little deeper than we can go with the deep tining. That's why we're take the whole thing up and supplement the soil.
Right. Okay, so how much does that eat
Yes.
into your
Fine.
budget? Oh, just normal every year cost?
When?
Will your staff be doing it?
No, most of that work's always contracted out, we don't have the equipment. We'll help with it.
If it were knocked out of the capital fund?
Not our general fund.
Yes, sir.
Is this a field that we always got awards for?
2 years back.
And if you actually go out in the field, you'll see that the sidelines has pretty decent grass, but between the hash marks, it's the grass that tends to spread and not go deep to get its water, and that's what's causing the issue. So that's just information purposes. We wanted to let you know that you might get some feedback.
We don't need any decision from the board on that, right? You're gonna handle it in-house?
Yes.
Okay. Committee comments? Public comments, period 2. Okay, the first one is Chris Nyman on the project.
Again, I'm going to ask you to hold off until the 5 new board members come on board. I think this is a major project here, and I think with 5 new board members coming on, we all need to have a say. 55 million is a lot of money. It's being repaid over 30 years, approximately 30 years, and it's probably gonna cost the community about 124 million till it's all paid. That's just basic. That's not design team, design people being paid, no extras. It's just the project. So we're putting a roof on that's only gonna last us 15, 20 years. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. As I said before, there's a big difference between want and need. I think a roof that's gonna last 30 years for the type of project we're having here is a lot more important than some of the wants of this administration, of the design team. I'm just concerned. I'm hearing it from the community. I was tackled at work today about it. There's too many people do not have that type of income coming in. I just don't know how you guys can spend that kind of money. And then after you spend 55 million to look to do other alternative bids, here we are again. We're not coming in under this 55 million. We're looking at alternative bids. Where do you think the community's getting this money from? I'm just, I don't know what to say. I mean, people do not have that money. I have people at work that are concerned how they're going to retire. And you people are looking to do alternative bids and not trying to stay in that $55 million budget. I commend these people that are doing this architectural thing because I wouldn't want that type of project with all these wants. You've got to come in under the 55 million. You've got to come in under that 55 million. And no alternative bids and a roof that is going to last us for the time of this bond issue.
Thank you, Chris. Larry Former now is next in what's about Dash Construction.
First of all, I did want to thank the design and construction team. I think they did a fantastic job, both conceptually and managing the budget, or the costs. But for the board, I want you, as you're thinking about your vote on the 12th, remember that we're very, very early on in the process. The design is very conceptual, very nebulous, and the estimate, and not to disparage the abilities of the team, there is some uncertainty in that estimate. It can't be perfect, okay? I'm sure they've done their very best to make sure that if there are any inaccuracies are going to be lower, so that we don't go, the costs don't exceed the target that you set, but do keep that in mind. I do think that, using contingency to meet your goal of 55 million, it is cause for concern, but remember that what you're comparing it to is an estimate.
Thank you, Larry. Next one, Linda Curry, the high school construction project.
Okay, again, my concern would be with the quality and the longevity of the roof proposed in this project, especially if the roof needs to be replaced before the project debt is paid off. So that is a big concern of mine. Also questioning the ACE grants. How soon would the district receive the money if they were chosen to receive it? And how does it come? Is it lump sum or is it in increments? I'd like to know a little more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That's the last item of public comment. The announcements. November 12th is a policy committee meeting at the Gilbertville Elementary School at 6 p.m. November 12th, the school board meeting, Gilbertville, at 7 o'clock. November 19th, Curriculum Committee, Education Center, 5:30 p.m. And November 19th, Finance Committee at this center at 6:30 p.m. And I need a motion to adjourn.
Event district? No.